Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and it's time for another episode of 7 on Sunday. This episode is dedicated to talented bands that are stuck in a rut. What I mean by that is that the bands featured on this list have put out albums, singles, material in general that is generally top tier, but in recent times they've fallen off and leaned more into the mediocre. John, wait, don't say another word, it's me from the future. Listen, everybody's gonna get pissed at every band that you put on the list and say that they're still putting out top tier material. It's not worth the risk. But other me, they're just opinions. Won't people understand? It's the year 2021 and you're expressing musical opinions on the internet. I think we all know that ain't gonna fly. Just because an artist simply makes the list doesn't necessarily mean that I think they're putting out bad music right now. It could be that case, or it could just be a bit more forgettable, or else not up to par with what they've done in the past. Now, there's a lot of bands that I unfortunately could have included on this list, some of which I did not because I've already talked about them a lot and the woes and struggles that they've seen in the later years, so I will put those in the description down below, along with others that I think are maybe going to bounce back with an album that's coming out soon. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, so this list is accurate as of mid-2021. Alright, so I think we got everything out of the way. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you enjoy this video, subscribe for the love of music, and drop a comment down below with any thoughts that you have on my list. Catfish and the Bottlemen, hailing from Wales over across the pond. This is a band that started out with a lot of promise. I have a lot of fun with their debut album, The Balcony, but from there, with The Ride and The Balance, they've just continuously pumped out very similar rock songs that discuss relationships and nights out on the town and maybe some other things that are popping up in the feels department, but it never really wades into the deep end. And I think their fans appreciate their consistency, but in my eyes, I guess the consistency is starting to turn into a rut of repetition. I've really been wishing for a while now that Catfish would just shake up the snow globe, give us something new to prove once and for all that they're not just this one-trick pony, but they seem hell-bent on just making the same song over and over. And while I do think it's admirable that they just focus more on their live shows, I've heard that they're amazing in concert, and the band themselves have said that their albums are one thing, but the live show is another. Not everyone can go to the live concerts. They're from the UK for me, and obviously COVID has thrown a wrench in a lot of things, but just in general, I feel that the songs on the album should be able to stand on your own, and over time, I've just been feeling less and less like they actually do. It just kind of feels like a slow descent into madness as they circle the drain with the same ideas, the same song structures. It gets very predictable, but then again, the fans seem to be absolutely loving it still. I'm sure that there's a few out there that would agree with me, so label this a hot take and let's move on. Well, I pissed myself on the Texan intersection with George spinning things all over his back. Ooh baby, the 1975, a band that I would have told you 5 years ago were the next big thing, because in 2016, their sophomore effort, I Like It When You Sleep, was my album of the year. I take no pleasure in saying that the 1975 have continuously slid from that creative peak that they found in 2016. There was something about those first two records that was just electric, both on the album and in their concerts. And since then, it feels like their frontman Matty Healy has had this mindset of, well, if the idea popped into my head, or maybe George Daniel, their drummer, and the primary producer's head, then it must be amazing. They've made great songs since then. They know their way around a damn hook. It's just like they're blueballing us sometimes. They'll give us If You're Too Shy, but they'll shove it in between a bunch of other songs that don't really make sense, at least not for the band in 1975. Maybe it would be better suited for a side project. A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships was a solid album, but there were definitely messy moments there that signaled, hey, maybe danger is looming just around the corner. For every great song, there was maybe a more questionable one, and then in 2020, we got Notes on a Conditional Form. You see, the 1975 had this really bad habit of over-promising and then under-delivering. They set a date or else a timeline multiple times and said, hey, this album's gonna have 22 songs. Have we written them yet? No. Reset button, where are you? I hope that the rumors are actually true that the 1975 are kind of in hiatus mode because they did very little in the way of promotion after Notes on a Conditional Form dropped in May of 2020. I'm hoping that maybe they actually do take inspiration from their original band name Drive Like I Do and come back with something with more of a creative spark. Sometimes older bands just lose their way. The inspiration doesn't hit the way it used to, and it's natural for that to happen, but I'm also in no way saying that I've given up on Green Day. I mean, my blackened heart, who has loved them more of his life than he hasn't at this point, of course I'm not saying that, and in no way do I agree with the critics that say, oh, they've been dog shit since 21st Century Breakdown. Take one listen to their side project, The Network, and you can see that all of the members clearly still have it. There's a fascinating feeling to that album, but I wish that they would bring more of the fun, more of that kind of explosive energy to the main band Green Day. If you love something or someone, you have to be honest, you have to come clean, and to speak my truth on Green Day, I think the trilogy was mediocre. It was at the very least bloated, despite there being some great songs obviously living there. Revolution Radio was super solid. I really like that album. I just don't love it the way I thought I did when it first came out. Maybe the hype got to me, and then Father of All Motherfuckers in 2020, that one was mostly a toilet flush. I completely forgot about the album almost instantly. Can Green Day bounce back? That is the biggest question. Are they going to be able to reach the heights that they did in the past? I don't know. I think it's something that we would all love to see, especially if they got inspired once again, maybe to write something a little bit angrier, maybe more political, maybe more story-based, like American Idiot. I don't know if that'll happen because Billy Joe Armstrong has said that he doesn't really enjoy writing long songs anymore, but I would love to see something more in the vein of Pollyanna, their 2021 single, which was definitely better and less like Here Comes the Shock and most of the stuff like Teenage Teenager on Father of All. AFI are no strangers to criticisms or even division within their own fan base, because starting with The Art of Drowning, I feel like there was kind of a line in the sand drawn, like, hey, I like Art and Drowning backwards in their discography, or else I like The Art of Drowning, Sing the Sorrow forward. Evolution and changes are definitely welcome here. Obviously, I'm a Green Day fan. I know something about a punk band changing up their sound pretty drastically and just hanging on through all of the years. But AFI definitely lost something this side of Burials, which I thought was a pretty solid effort. There's songs that I still come back to, but especially after that, I feel that Davey Havok and Jade Puget have really struggled and maybe have stretched themselves a bit too thin. If you follow AFI religiously, then you're probably well aware of just how many side projects Davey and Jade have both had, especially in like the past 15 years. Maybe they spread themselves a bit too thin and poured themselves into those projects, but when they come back to AFI, it just kind of feels like going through the motions, like we're just getting a contractual obligation. There's a way in which Davey sings and writes now that just feels like it's kind of tapping the bottom of the well, like we've reached the bottom and there's not a ton else that you're going to be able to mine out of here, and I feel that the musical atmospheres and even the structures of the songs are just trying to maybe have a different styled atmosphere, or even conjure something a bit darker, but it's like putting a match in a cave and it instantly goes out. Had to give the band Incubus a spot on the list at number 3 because they've not been awful in recent times. It's just that they're kind of floating with their heads slightly above water. And for a band, they cranked out some really solid albums back in the day, from Science, more so on the nu metal side of things, and also Morning View, which is one of my favorite alternative records of all time. They've been steadily going downhill, especially since Light Grenades, but at this point, I would take another Light Grenades instead of another 8, or if not now, When, which was just so sleep-inducing. There's been a lot of talk of new music in the past decade, but there hasn't been a ton of follow-through, with them leaving long gaps in between releases, like the EPs Trustfall Side A and B had years in between, 8 got stuffed in there, and it feels like even though there is still something burning, it's like like it's set to simmer when it should be to boil, and I just don't feel that they're utilizing all of the band members in the best way. The energy is unfocused, the clumsy lyrics don't really help matters all that much, and Brandon Boyd is somebody that I really do have a lot of respect for. I think he's a really great vocalist and a songwriter. He proved that even further with his side project Sons of the Sea that came out in, I believe, 2013. But in recent times with Incubus, I just don't feel that they're living up to their full potential. Dunk on us with some of that wisdom that only comes with age. I find it so ironic when bands that have been through the ringer, they've seen some things and they've had a lot of life experiences, they start to water down their music the older they get and make it more generic instead of actually letting us into their mind, into their collective heads to give us something that maybe we could learn from as we grow older too. What in the actual hell happened to Remo Drive? I've been asking myself this exact question pretty much since they signed to Epitaph Records. They put out this amazing emo and punk inspired album Greatest Hits, which kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy with the title. But the follow-ups, Natural Everyday Degradation and Portrait of an Ugly Man, are so bland, so dry, so faux intellectual that I just found myself tuning out and wondering how this could have happened. How did we get there? Well, a lot of sources would kind of cite Steven and Eric themselves as being the core members, the only members that really get the input, and they kicked out one of the best things that ever happened to them, their drummer, Sam Mathis. Why would this happen? Why would they remove a member that added so much to the band and gave electrifying performances both live and in the studio? Well, apparently Sam himself can't even answer that question because he was removed and not really given a reason why. In the years following these events, it feels like Remo Drive have gotten really defensive over their new directions and new stylistic endeavors, kind of condemning fans that want a Greatest Hits Part 2 and saying it would be childish to make such a thing even though that's literally what they built their name on. Eric seemed to be a charismatic frontman with a ton of dry wit and charm on Greatest Hits, but the subsequent releases have totally tuned that out and have become this alienating band that I think most of their fans don't even recognize.
I know I got you, and you know you got me. We got everything we need.
For those who have heart, more like for those who don't have heart. There's nothing wrong with settling down, with finding peace in your life and turning over the page to a new chapter. But there is a crystal clear difference between starting something new and evolving and pandering to the lowest common denominator. A Day to Remember went from Common Courtesy, the defining record of their career in 2013, to Bad Vibrations, a slightly underwhelming, sort of mediocre effort that I would definitely take more of at this point, to 2021's You're Welcome, the long-delayed album that feels literally like high-diving into a pile of dog shit. A Day to Remember were a shining star example of what it could be for a band to take on multiple genres and succeed. They thrived in the metalcore space, they thrived in the pop-punk world, and they took that energy and pumped out several albums that really hit the sweet spot and still do to this day. But at this point, you're lying to yourself if you think the new material that they're dropping is anywhere close to the stuff that they put out in the past. It's not just because it sounds different, it's because it's the same route that every band takes when maybe they sign to a major label like Fueled by Ramen, or maybe they just say, hey, we want to try out something a little bit new for our band, and then it ends up being washed out Imagine Dragons clones that sound like Top 40 radio. It's always tacky, it's always out of touch, and it makes A Day to Remember look clueless because they've been hyping this up for so long, numerous delays, and then you put it out, and it's this? It's really awkward. It stands out so obviously in their discography. The songwriting is trash. It feels like it could have been done by anyone. And the band members, they occasionally phone in performances, but nothing on there even holds a candle to their greatest flame. What did you guys think of my list of talented bands that are currently stuck in some sort of mediocre rut? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, whether you agree or disagree, somewhere in between. And also, if you want to see a part 2, or maybe you just want to support this video, then hit the like button, subscribe, and turn notifications on, and check out a couple of recent episodes of SOS floating on screen now. All of my socials can be found linked in the description down below, and I'll be back soon for more on ARTV.